Hey, you remember when I would play game demos? Yes, welcome back once again to Overly Demotional. Kind of. Earlier in the year, I tried to kind of get back into the groove on this channel by playing a bunch of game demos and then going over what I liked about them and if they actually sold me on the game. But what I realized is that being able to sit down and just record me playing all of the games doesn't really make sense, because I usually just play game demos when I happen to have the opportunity to do so. So I started to just play game demos when I had the opportunity to, and I thought, let's just get them all out of the way right now. In a handy tier list! Yeah, this is actually the first time I've ever tried doing a tier list, so it's going to be bad. Stay tuned to see how bad it is. So what we have here are 15 game demos, and I am going to be organizing them into this tier list, which has some pretty easy to understand categories, especially if you know anything about Steam. So up at the top, the best you could possibly get is Buy It Now, which for me basically means I played the demo and I needed to pick it up. That is a very rare occurrence, as you will see as we go through this, but it is one that is the highest of marks for a game demo. The second category is wish list. You are interested enough in it that you are going to put it on your wish list, maybe to see if the price goes down or if there's sales, or, you know, just to follow along with it to see if it has updates, because maybe it's not in totally a finished form or in early access. Next category is I Get It, which is basically, I probably won't play this, but I do appreciate that it did what it did. It's probably the category a lot of these are going to go in, because I might not have much interest in playing the entire game, but it did at least explain to me what the game was, and made me go, oh, okay, that's neat. Ignore. Pretty straightforward. I don't want to deal with this game again, and I'd prefer that Steam not recommend it to me. So it's going to go into ignore. And then the final category is why. I think I'm going to put an exclamation point and a question mark after why for emphasis. So why is a category where I just wonder why they bothered to make this game. Why does it exist? Which I swear is actually worse than ignore, because with ignore, I understand why the game is there, I just don't want to play it. But with why, I don't know why they bothered doing it entirely. And with that being said, let's get into these rankings. So first up, we have Rewind 99. And for people who are not familiar with shop sims, they are very prevalent in the modern era of video gaming. We actually had an episode of that over on TPK where Alex and I were exploring what we called Shop Sim Slop, and I was actually playing Supermarket Simulator to demonstrate what we were discussing. They are kind of incremental games. You just have a shop, and you keep expanding it and finding new products, and you just keep getting better at the thing. Very simple game loop, and a fair amount of jank. There's a lot of jankiness to it, which I think is actually the more endearing part that people like about it. But one thing that I noted about shop sims is that they have a tendency to feel very lifeless. The shop itself is basically everything, and there's no real exploration of the world. There's no more world building outside of that shop. Most of them don't even bother to have an outside of the shop, and in something like Supermarket Simulator, the exterior world is mostly there just so that you can do deliveries, and also to manually buy product from shops, which is actually more of an inconvenience than anything else. But Rewind 99 is kind of interesting, because one, it has an art style that doesn't make it look like it's just an asset flip. It's actually a cel-shaded art style with kind of this wacky neon glow, very 90s aesthetic for a world. And it actually has things for you to do in the exterior world. There's collectibles that you can get, but also the world itself feels like it's been fleshed out with lore that you could explore if you really wanted to, when you get into the back corners of it and explore those sort of things, as well as having the ability to do some like light platforming as you go around and interact with some of the citizens, and sometimes get chased by a security camera monster thing. Anyway, there's stuff to do outside of the main game, and that's really appreciated. The store part itself is very similar to what you'll experience in other shop sims. You have a VHS rental shop. You're basically Blockbuster. Or maybe Hollywood Video. I don't know which one, but it's that. And it has very, not even 90s aesthetic. It almost looks a little bit more 80s in terms of the neon glow kind of thing. But, you know, maybe kind of vapor wavy. It has you put up displays for your different videos, and then you go and rent them out. And there's a rewind machine for people who don't actually want to be kind and do not rewind. And as your shop gets, upgraded and you gain levels, you gain access to different kinds of videos. And, you know the basic role here. That part works pretty well. It's pretty standard fare, but, it's kind of neat that they did it with that sort of shop. There are some weird things about the game. Don't get me wrong, the platforming isn't the best when you get out to do the platforming, and it doesn't really serve you very much in the shop role. The exterior world feels very much disconnected in terms of what you're doing in the shop. And there's also just odd things, like you'll get deliveries from your truck in the back, and then after you take everything out of the delivery truck, it just explodes on you. Don't know why. I guess it's funny. It's fun. I guess that's why they did it. The overall world also has kind of an unsettling quality to it. Like, you're always being monitored. There's this, big tower in the center that, is always watching. But also, your characters don't really feel human. The world doesn't feel like a real place. It feels more like an alien's interpretation of what 1999 in America looks like. That actually makes it a lot more interesting than most shop sims. So, as far as I'm concerned, Rewind 99 is actually a wishlist item for me, because I'm interested in what it will do in the future. I'm not picking it up now. But if I ever go back to do, shop sims, or try another one, this is the one that I'd want to try. Deep Snow Delivery is a game that I'm going to call Strand-like, because very much like Death Stranding, the main mechanic of the game is to deliver packages. Now, in Death Stranding, you load them up onto Norman Reedus' back, and I know that's not his character's name, but we're going to call him Norman Reedus anyway, because you can obviously tell. And you load it up and go into the terrain that has been built that is supposed to be representative of the United States. And you go out there and put down ladders, put down ropes, and you deliver these packages on a decimated landscape with these weird creatures that are following you. And in Deep Snow Delivery, they basically take you up to a snowy wasteland that seems like it's in some kind of dystopic mirror universe, and you get to have this big snow machine that has a flatbed in the back, and you can load packages up onto it, and you take them across this dangerous terrain to another port of call. And that is pretty straightforward. You do have to kind of figure out how to navigate that world, and there are upgrades to both the amount of stuff you can carry and also the capabilities of your snow machine as well. There are some tedious parts to this. In fact, I think the tedium is probably the biggest problem for Deep Snow Delivery, because in order to load these packages on, you have to take your crane arm, pick them up off the landscape, rotate your crane arm around, and then drop them into your flatbed. And you're going to need to figure out how to actually position them in that flatbed so that they don't immediately fall out. You can eventually upgrade this so it's harder for them to fall out, but still, trying to, navigate that, even when you get into the detailed mode, where it's more like a grid, where you can organize this stuff, it's just a lot of tedious kind of like backpack management, essentially, but with a truck. And this is especially frustrating when you happen to hit a rock and flip your truck over, and then all the boxes fall all over the hillside in the snow, and you'd have to go and manually pick up each one of them. This is, by the way, the point where I stopped playing the demo because I was like, yep, I get it, and I'm moving on, and that is exactly the reason why I'm putting it in I get it. DrainSim is one of these job simulators which basically has you taking on the role of somebody who just does DIY drainage for flooded areas, and they give you a bunch of different pieces of equipment and scanning stuff and everything, and I'm not really going to talk too much about DrainSim because it's surprisingly boring. You're basically just taking your equipment, going to an area, and trying to figure out, like, where all the drains are, how you get the water from this area out. You do that, and then you kind of wait around for the water to actually go away. And then they're like, good job, here's the next area. The demo is fairly limited. If you wanted to try it out, it's not too cumbersome, but the tutorial part is, you're going to realize it's just pretty straightforward. It's like, yep, here's a shovel, it moves land. Here's a generator, here's your pump. These do what you expect them to do. You put them down, they do that job. And it's just not a particularly engaging game, and for me, it is an ignore. Scriptorium, Master of Manuscripts. I think it was important for them to put that subtitle, because if you just look up Scriptorium, they'll actually just tell you what a Scriptorium was. But Master of Manuscripts, this is a weird game. It's not really much of a game. They give you what looks like ye old artisan scroll with different elements on it, and they want you to just put different elements onto that script to complete a mission. Somebody comes to you and says, I need a scroll. They'll do it in an old-timey voice. Maybe I can do it too. I would like you to give me ye old scroll, but could you put some more flowers and trees in it? And then basically you just take art assets from the side of the screen and say, oh, here's some trees. And you put the trees onto the manuscript. And they go, oh good, you have met the requirements, sir. And you give it to them. You can unlock other colors and other assets, I guess, but as long as you're putting stuff into the right category, you're probably good. It's very freeform, maybe too freeform, and there's not a lot of, like, shop management, like, risk, like, oh, well, putting these elements on takes resources or stuff. No, just throw everything in there, it's fine. Which means that there really aren't any stakes to the game. And this is one of those cases where I'm kind of torn. I'd say that it would be an ignore, but I'm also wondering just why they made it. I guess for people who like art, but it doesn't make sense why this game exists. And so for that reason, I think I'm putting it in Y. Mining Merchants, another game from the fine tradition of, like, Mining Mechs and Mining Mechs 2, which I have played to some degree. Mining Merchant, though, is where you are going down into the mines to collect valuable resources that you can turn into merchandise that you can then sell in a shop. So it's sort of like if you had Mining Mechs, but you also wanted to do Moonlighter. But it's actually kind of more straightforward than that. You're mostly just, like, making jewelry, rings, necklaces, stuff like that, with copper ore, iron ore, anything like that. That's basically what you're taking out of the mines. There does seem to be a larger story going on with the, like, tremors that happen at the end of each day, but it's probably just a story that's used to wrap into the mechanics of the game, because the tremors just reset the mine each day. So I have a feeling that it's more about that. It's story in service of the game mechanics. The game mechanics are pretty straightforward. You get into your mech, you go down into the mines, you mine resources. Oh no, we filled up on dirt, we filled up on valuables, go back up to the surface, and eventually you can't collect any more for the day, so we're back to the shop. Then you go to the shop, you put your rings that you made, you put them up for sale. You have a few spaces in the back that you can use to put your storage, your stock, and you pull them out and move them up to the front room as things sell, which I frankly think could have been much more streamlined for this process. If I have like 5 copper rings that are all the same quality, could I just put a podium there with just the one ring, and then just have the other rings in storage on the site? That would have been handy. I don't really know why I have to, like, walk over here, grab this one item, take it over here, place it on the stand. It's just unnecessary tedium for this game. Also in the tedium category is the making of the rings. For some reason they have like a little bit of a crafting minigame for you to do, but it doesn't seem to affect anything about the quality of the piece, and it mostly just serves for you to kind of stretch the time of you making the actual jewelry. I don't know why you'd want to do that. It's not the most interesting part of the game. The most interesting part is just going and mining for resources, which is the fun of something like a mining mechs as well. But the full game does sound like it's going to offer more upgrades to the shop, more upgrades to the mech. You know the deal. I'm not seeing a lot over the mining mech games, and I've played enough of them at this point to know how they work, to say that it's going to be an ignore for me on Mining Merchant. Beyond Words is evil, because what they have decided to make with Beyond Words is Balatro, but Scrabble. If you like word games or puzzle games like that, and you were also very addicted to the idea of like the roguelike parlor games or board games, well, then Beyond Words is just everything you ever wanted. There's a bunch of different boards for you to play on. There is like a node-based progression system with different lines to go through. There are timed missions. There are special condition missions. You have power-up cards. You have one-use cards. You have a wide variety of different words that you can utilize. Even proper nouns are used in this. And you get some interesting power-ups, too, where you might, for a turn, not just have to be able to use letters in one row or column, but I think it's the Fit It Anywhere upgrade. Actually just allows you to put letters wherever you want on the board. But by the time you get to that, you have accrued quite a bit of money, so it's more of a late-stage thing to do. Your tiles can get upgraded in a wide variety of ways. There are like virus upgrades where it will transmit to other tiles around it, and they might periodically disappear, but they could also be worth more with the right cards. You get multipliers for different tiles that you can utilize. There are just a myriad of different things that you can do with those tiles over the course of time. This is the one game that I can actually firmly say I'm putting in buy it now, because I did indeed buy the game. Not only did I buy the game, but then I played it for a very long time afterward, and I did all the missions, because this just scratches that same itch of like the roguelike board games and card games that a Balatro or a Clover Pit does. But I actually think it does it better than Clover Pit. Balatro is still a classic, but I did like that Beyond Words has a lot more nuance in it than you would get with a Balatro, because it is this board game where you're trying to figure out how to make different kinds of words and put them in different places, and you have a lot more options at your disposal. The only reason I stopped playing the game was because I think I kind of broke it. There was a point where my exponent was so high that the game just, like, stopped working very well. Like, it would take whole minutes for it to process what was happening on screen, and the game just took forever to do every single move, and I'm like, okay, I think that they're telling me it's time, because I don't really want to end the run because it's going so well, because like I could probably do limit breaking on this, but at the same time I don't really want to stand here or sit here, because let's face it, you don't stand when you play these things. Yeah, be sitting here just twiddling my thumbs, just waiting for the one tile that I played to score all the points. And that's usually the point where you're like, okay, I think I can be done with this one. Still, I did log in nearly 80 hours into Beyond Words, which for the $15 price tag is definitely worthwhile. Side note, this was actually a game that was created by Steve Ellis and David Doak, who were the creators of GoldenEye and Timesplitters. So different genre entirely for them, but this is definitely like a Balatro-style game that works for me. Under Par Golf Architect is a game that is sort of like a business tycoon management game, but one where you are running a golf course. And kind of an interesting concept. The second that I started getting into it, I started to realize, oh, there's something here. You know, you have to figure out where you're going to place bathrooms and fountains and concession stands and offer new services, you know, like driving lanes, putting greens, those sort of things. But you also get to actually build your golf holes, like the actual holes for each one of them, and set what your par is for them, how long they are. You have this kind of sliding scale that they give you where they're like, well, how much fairway are you giving for the par? How much green? How much are you doing for traps, water traps, sand traps, rough, rocks, trees, etc.? And so you're trying to figure out like what a good balance of all of this stuff is, so that you can get a really good rating on that hole. In a very interesting like side thing that you can do in this game, though, you can actually take an avatar and you can play the holes that you make, which is really interesting. The golfing part of this is very similar to like a very old school, like, if any of you played, like, Jack Nicklaus golf, you know, you press a button to start your swing, and then you press it again to make sure that you're, you know, hitting true, that sort of thing. Then you try it out and see if you can actually master the holes that you have made. It also allows you to just wander around the facility that you've made, which is pretty great. You can do some really weird things. You can actually have holes cross over each other if you really wanted to. It's not really recommended, but you could technically do it. I tried messing around with like how long I could make holes. I made like a par 6. Didn't really think was a thing, but I guess it is. It's not very common, at least. And then some that were super short but had like long drops down, like it went into a ravine. You can play around with it, have some fun, and then you see if people enjoy it and come and spend money, and that allows you to get money to upgrade the facilities. So as far as a like tycoon style business building game, it actually works pretty well, and it has some of those nice added elements to it where you actually get to go onto the ground and actually play the game that you are building a course for. It's not necessarily something that I need to pick up right away because I'm not really that big a golfer, but I think that it does a really good job at representing golf. It's definitely more fun than another game I'm going to be talking about later that has golf in the title, and so I'm going to put it on wishlist. And oh, it happens to be the next game that we're talking about. So True Disc Golf is a game that doesn't really make much sense at all. It is a frisbee golf game. Frolfing, if you will. And it is, I guess it works. The mechanics of actually throwing your frisbee, it's kind of similar to what I was saying with Under Par, but it also wants you to, like, figure out, like, the pitch and the yaw, I guess, of, like, how you're holding your frisbee when you throw it. And it feels kind of unfinished, very rough, and the physics of it are kind of wonky. And again, it just kind of makes me ask, why? Why did they make this? I have no answer, so it's going to go in why. iRacing Arcade is like if you took an arcade racing game and you removed all the fun from it. This is a very bare bones, basic racing game. I'll put it to you this way. After you have played Forza Horizon, you will wonder why this even exists. It has some, like, real sponsors in the game, and then it also has what looks like fake sponsors in the game. The course is pretty basic that they give you in the demo, and it won't take you all that long to run through it. So I guess there's that. It's not a very long demo in general. There isn't nearly the sense of speed that you would hope for in an arcade racer, and it's not like they want you to be banging into everything else. They're still going to penalize you for going off of the course and stuff like that. So even the things that you kind of hope for from a racing game, like if you're not just a Forza Horizon, but like a Burnout or something like that, where, you know, you're slamming into other cars and your car's getting wrecked and there's a real sense of speed coming at you, right? iRacing Arcade just doesn't do that. And so for that very reason, I again ask, why? Oceaneers is a group survival game where you have wound up on an island with a couple cohorts and you need to survive, which means that you need to collect resources, you need to get your crafting stations down, you need to do all those things that a survival crafting game normally asks you to do, but you do it with characters that are kind of ripped right out of Don't Starve, more or less. The art style's a little bit different, and it's definitely far more colorful, but you kind of get the idea here. The look, the feel, the perspective that they're doing is very Don't Starve, but with a little bit of a crew that's getting together and giving assignments that you can task them with. They're all going to be better at certain things, and they improve with those skills over the course of time, and eventually you'll go out into the water or scout different areas and find other resources. If you have played a survival crafting game before, this is going to be pretty rudimentary for you. It's going to be like riding a bike. And it does it all fine. It's very cohesive as a piece. But it didn't really have all that much of interest that sets it apart from other survival crafting games, except, of course, for maybe like the top-down 2.5D perspective, and the fact that it's like a little crew that you're working with on a foreign island. But it's not really that much of a step. It's not something that I would normally play, but I do get it, so it's going there. Okay, a couple games that I played very recently. We have Dragonsword Awakening. This is a demo that just came out. As of recording this, it just came out a few days ago. And it is... How do I put this? It's Genshin Impact. I'm pretty sure that the developer is Korean, and I only say that because when you load up the game, it asks you if you want the voiceover to be in Korean or none. So there's that. It is done in Unreal Engine 5, and so it looks very pretty. It really does look very pretty. But if you are at all familiar with like a Genshin Impact, this is very similar to that. You have a small crew of characters. You keep accruing different characters throughout the game. There is a battle system. You get to switch between different characters to do like combo maneuvers between them, which is very fun. And you even get mounts. They give you a little mount where you got like a little beetle. Yeah, like Blue Beetle, and you get to ride on him. That's pretty sweet. You go to dungeons, you battle a dragon. In the demo, you get to battle a dragon. That's pretty cool. There's towns. The towns are populated, full of people. Really nice graphic design and architecture, and, you know, the aesthetics of the game look terrific. But at the end of the day, it is sort of just one of those sort of anime-inspired looking beat-em-up games where you go out into the wilds and you attack a bunch of things. I do say that this feels like Genshin Impact, but it also does kind of feel like Breath of the Wild, although definitely Hoyoverse was inspired greatly by that as well. But I can't really tell you that it's as rich as a Breath of the Wild because I haven't gotten a chance to play Breath of the Wild yet. But from everything that I've seen, there's a lot more that you can do in a game like that or Tears of the Kingdom than you could do in Dragonsword Awakening. I don't know if this is going to end up being a free game that has like premium microtransactions or if it's going to be one that you pay for outright, but it's probably not for me. I do, however, get it. I understand why it exists. And I do want to keep tabs on it because I am wondering what it's going to be for a pay structure and what the final product is actually going to offer for the size and the scale and the scope of the game. Schrodinger's cat burglar is what happens when somebody asks the question, what if Portal but cat? And I don't know if I really need to say much more than that. Okay, so you get to play this cat, Mittens. Mittens very cute. There's definitely cuteness factor to be considered with the cat game. Mittens does score very high on the cuteness meter. Mittens has the ability to actually pull himself, herself. I don't really know. But anyway, Mittens can pull themselves apart into a blue and orange version. Oh, blue and orange. I wonder what other game used that particular color scheme. You're not going through portals, though, in this game. You are just using that aesthetic that they had for Portal in order to place the cat in two different areas. And this leads to a bunch of different challenges and puzzles that you can do to, be a cat burglar at this facility and get the secrets and stuff. Some of these challenges are not as confusing as I originally thought, and I think one of the reasons why I got hung up occasionally was because I thought that I needed to be more clever than the game actually wanted me to be. For instance, there is a part early on in the game when they're just teaching you the mechanics where they introduce you to the idea of having a split for objects. So, like, there's weights, and you can put those weights onto pressure points, but they have to be the right colors. So you can split them apart into an orange and a blue version of the weight. My thought process was that you have to have one of the cats be on the trigger so that it splits those two apart. And my thought process is, so I have to get one of the cats on there, and then the other mittens is going to grab one of the weights and can put it down. But then I'm probably going to have to switch the cats so that the weight doesn't go away. How do I switch the cat from the one to the other on the lever so that they can get the other weight? And it just wasn't working. It wasn't letting me switch between those cats. And it turns out that the reason why is because I didn't need to worry about that. You just flip the lever and those two versions of the weight just stay there. So I was trying to think more cleverly than the game was actually asking me to be. I think the demo was nice. It did a good job of representing what the game is. I can't really tell you that I'm looking forward to playing a full version, but it was kind of neat. I get it. I do get it. Ruinlander is, do I even have to talk about it? I guess I will. Okay, so Ruinlander is like a top-down survival game that's on this grid. And it starts you off in one city and then kind of asks you to go out into the wilds. And the main purpose of this game is to survive. And there's trouble around every corner. The problem with the game is that because it's so focused on all of these meters, hunger meter, sleep meter, everything that you're supposed to do, in this turn-based, top-down, almost board game style, what you find is that most of what you're doing is just trying to keep up with those meters and making very limited progress in the meantime. One of the main mistakes that I made was just trying to go out beyond the city limits and just explore a bit. Don't do that, apparently, because wolves will come out of nowhere. They will immediately kill you. You cannot fight back against them. You have very little ability to do so. And then, because the game can only be saved in town, you will go back to the town and they'll say, you gotta stay in this town, you gotta work to get a little bit of money, you gotta scrounge for some more, you gotta eat, you gotta sleep a bunch, and then hopefully come back when the shops are open, and then maybe you can buy enough supplies. And unfortunately, this process just takes a really long time before you feel confident enough to just go out beyond the city limits at all to any other location. Even after you do a lot of that, you'll probably find yourself accosted by a bunch of wolves or a bunch of people. Even if you win, even if you make it through those encounters, it's just for such minimal gain and so little reward that you're probably going to end up paying more for it than you get out of it. Even once you start getting guns, if you're not at all trained with these guns, you're going to miss continuously, and you might only be able to do one or two attacks with the energy that you have, but you're outnumbered. So they're going to do a ton of attacks on you. And with your limited life and your limited energy, you're probably not going to be able to fight back. They probably won't even let you escape or flee. Even though that's an option, chances are you will not be able to do so. So it just becomes this miserable cycle where you're just constantly like, I gotta go back to town, I've got to spend days upon days resting up, making money, going to the shops, trying to get there when they're actually open, sleeping in this cot, scrounging around. Okay, I've finally gotten my meters back up, I've finally gotten my water and my food and my sleep meters. Okay, everything's good. Go out into the woods for 5 seconds, get accosted by a few wolves. Even if I win, okay, everything's back down. Go back to town, do this cycle for several days, over and over and over again, and you just ask yourself, why am I bothering? It's so mired in the minutia, and the minutia eventually just becomes the main thing of the game. So, yeah, it's an ignore, definitely. So, Stonemachia is a Souls-like. It's actually the only Souls-like on this list, so that's kind of neat. And Stonemachia is a game where you get to play a pawn. like from an actual chess game, and you can take on other forms too, of like a knight and a bishop to get special skills that you can use in battle. And it does follow a very Souls-like formula where you're battling enemies and you have to think strategically about, how you're going to attack them, and it does rely pretty heavily on like parrying and reposting and all of that. The boss battles are doable, but you will have to take several tries at them, which is fine. I did kind of get frustrated by the first big boss battle, but I did it. I think it's mostly that at a certain point, you get to a point in the demo where I just stopped playing because I'm like, okay, I get it. I get it. There's guys around all the corners. They're coming after me, and I'm not particularly interested in where the game goes. It's got some of the basic mechanics for upgrading your character. It's got a lot of the elements of a Souls-like, but I wasn't engaged with the world. The mechanics of the actual game are still very stilted, which is mugging a little bit from like the kind of tanky controls that you would experience with the Dark Souls, but it's not feeling nearly as rich or interesting. I also feel like it didn't really commit to its theme as much as it could. If you're saying, I'm going to do Dark Souls, but it's going to be chess, well, then really commit to the idea of the look and the aesthetic of chess, and also maybe try to add in some of the mechanics of chess in terms of, like, how characters move and the way that they maneuver. But the first time you get to a boss, the boss doesn't really seem to be chess-themed at all. A lot of the enemies that you deal with are just, like, little guys that are just there. There's just giants. There's a lot of elements that don't actually make sense to chess that they have also put into the game, so I'm not quite sure what the idea was. Maybe if they were even just like board game related, maybe there could just be a stack of checkers, or like a dude that just throws checkers at you. That would be close. I get it. I do get it. But I also don't really care all that much, to be honest with you. And finally, we have Breakout Season. Really interesting, actually, because it is still a roguelike, but it is a roguelike for Breakout, basically. We fire these balls onto a board where there's a bunch of bricks, and if we get rid of those bricks, it will add to our score, and we have to overcome a score in order to advance to the next round. It is very much in the same vein as Balatro or like Beyond Words that we talked about earlier. It does do a couple things that are different. First of all, you don't actually get the ability to like skip through any of these levels, or I should say seasons. There's basically 4 seasons, and then there's 3 rungs of seasons, so you're going through 12 levels, basically, and if you win that, you win that particular board, that particular scenario. So that's a little bit different, and the other thing that's interesting is that you get to choose at the beginning of your round what kind of challenge you want for how many points you are going to score. So you could do a 1-star, 2-star, or 3-star challenge, and, if you're really trying to rack up that score, you'd want to see if you could actually get 3-star challenges and do them for every single level. You do get rewarded with some more coins for doing that. So you get to kind of modify how difficult the game is as you go along. You can say, well, I only scored like 2,000 on that last one. I don't know, the level 3 challenge says 3,000. Maybe I should do a level 2. I don't know if I feel confident enough in that, because I don't want to risk getting my entire game scrapped, but at the same time, I do want to try and get the challenge that's going to give me the best payout. So you get these sort of things that give the player the ability to kind of like modify how difficult the game is. But there is a lot of trial and error to the game as well. When a board comes around, your special bricks, which are the ones that you can actually purchase from the store, get like randomly assigned onto the board. And so if you have one that is supposed to give you multiplier, but it's really hard to reach it, it's going to be much more difficult for you to actually reach your score for the number of rounds that you have than if they placed it in a really convenient location. And you also can't really change the layout of those pieces. Like, you can't reorganize like you could with the Joker cards, where you can reorganize them. The tiles are just the tiles, and then they just randomly place the tiles on the board at the beginning. You do have to take into account a certain amount of randomness to how these are going to help you in the game. Some of them you start to find are very detrimental, because there's one like the pepper, which will, if you hit it and break it, gives you like +3 points, but it also will like regenerate with like 3 versions of itself every time you hit it. So your entire board can eventually just be peppers, which would normally be okay, except it might make it so that your ball can't actually get behind the bricks. And once that happens, you're in a little bit of trouble. It's hard to really rack up a big score for that. There's a real randomness to how this game is put forward, and it makes it a little bit difficult to talk, apparently, but also it makes it very difficult for you to, like, strategize too much. There are a whole host of upgrades that will increase the potential capacity for your balls, or the number of balls that you start out with, which obviously is helpful, but also might increase your multiplier, or do a whole variety of things. And you can figure out different combinations that work. I found that if you get the bigger basket mod that like adds +6 to your complete capacity for balls, and then you put that with I think it's spring loaded, which gives you like +1 multiplier for every 2 open slots in your ball capacity. You could really rack those up so that every time you take bigger balls, if you're not like gaining them in the game itself, you're essentially like gaining a 3x multiplier every single time you do that, and then get more spring-loaded ones, and that stacks onto itself as well. So there's definitely combinations that you can make, similar to a Balatro, similar to a Beyond Words, etc., but it is still kind of random, and I usually found out that the second that I said, okay, I'm going to try for a 3-star here, because I did a really great score on the last one, way better than the 3-star on this one, I'm going to be fine, that is when my game completely collapsed and it ended. So there's a little bit too much randomness for me, but I did keep going back to the demo because I did find it quite fun. So I think it's going to end up on the wish list. There you go, that's 15 games down. I've done 15 of these now, not to mention all the ones that I did before. Do I need to move any of these around? Breakout Season's probably higher on the wish list. In terms of getting it, I feel like probably Schrodinger's Cat, maybe higher, maybe Dragonsword, maybe Stonemachia, I guess. Yeah, this is probably a more accurate description, because Mining Merchant I'm ignoring, but it didn't make me mad like Ruinlander, and it didn't make me feel like I was wasting my time as much as DrainSim. And as far as like getting it, yeah, Schrodinger's Cat and Dragonsword and Stonemachia were interesting, and definitely felt like real fleshed out games with a team that had a vision for it, even if I didn't necessarily want to play it. But yeah, in terms of wishlist items, I'd say Breakout Season's probably the most interesting for me. Rewind 99 as a shop sim is very intriguing and under par as far as a management sim is has some really interesting elements to it. And I don't need to organize my buy it now, because there's literally one there. Okay, so 15 games down on the tier list. I actually enjoyed doing this as a format. It allows us to talk about the games a little bit in shorter sections. We get to go over a lot of them at the same time. And who knows, maybe if I end up playing a bunch more game demos, I know I have a bunch loaded onto my computer at present, maybe we'll be able to go back to them and do another tier list like this. But in the meantime, I guess I'm just going to hang out in the coffee house, because I was done waiting for the Psitanium mine to open back up, so we're just here now. Put up a poster of it later, who knows? Man, I've got so many demos to go through.